Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and in this video we're going to be taking a look at the job changes for patch 6.2. These came with the full release of the patch notes after the servers went down to implement patch 6.2, and well, I'm going to be taking a look at them now. Now, as it states right here, they are also going to be providing explanations for the adjustments, so we're actually going to look at the job changes themselves first. And then I'm going to take a look at their reasoning. I'm going to see if I can guess what the reasons are, although I have a feeling it's going to be like, the explanations are going to be like kind of streamlined. Like they're not going to be super in-depth because they're just posted in the job guide. It's not like a super in-depth Yoshi P post, like point by point, like we've seen in the past. So yeah, with that, let's get started looking at the job changes. I should also look at the PvP job changes now that I think about it. But for now, we'll start the video and I'll worry about that later. Anyway, PvE provoke enmity generated has been increased. It's most likely tank swaps. I mean, it's really the only reason why you would increase provokes enmity at this point. I don't think you increase it because of new players spamming provoke or anything like that, or Final Fantasy 11 players. We're way past those days. Yeah, that's got to be job, so that's got to be tank swaps. So I can't think of any other reason to do that. Paladin getting some potency buffs. I think this is fine. Holy Spirit, Blade of Faith, Blade of Truth, Blade of Valor. Some pretty sizable ones for that combo. And Requiesce gets potency for Holy Spirit, of course, goes up by 20 instead of 10 since the base potency goes up by 10. I guess this is just for Paladin's burst windows. So Paladin has burst windows. It's so many GCDs long for their burst window, and it's just, 1 GCD, 2 GCD, 3 GCD. That, yeah, I mean, it just kind of falls in line with that, with their magic burst window at the very least. So, I mean, that just increases their baseline. Anywhere you increase potencies on Paladin is going to be pretty noticeable, as long as it's not a skill they very, very seldom use, like Royal Authority. That's like one skill that's, if you increase that, it's one of the least impactful things. But this is something you'll be using every minute, and a pretty sizable increase every minute at that. So just nice quality of life, just more damage for Paladin. Doesn't hurt. Warrior. Now this is very surprising. So they said that with the crit direct hit changes, they'd be making adjustments to other skills, or they'd be making adjustments to the jobs with the notion that these crit direct hit changes were coming in mind. But I suspected we would see potency reductions on some warrior skills to make up for the fact they now have the increased damage possibilities of that. However, warrior was already most of the time the lowest outputting job when it came to the 4 tanks. Even though their burst was insanely good, if the fight was like a consistent uptime encounter, they were usually fairly close with Paladin, interchangeable with Paladin, but definitely below all the other tanks by a reasonable enough margin. So it looks like they're going to be leaving most of Warrior's primary damage skills intact even after the crit direct hit changes, and giving them some more baseline potencies to go off of between those windows. So increasing their consistent DPS a little bit and leaving their burst the same, which inherently buffs their burst a little bit. We still don't really know the full repercussions of these crit direct hit changes. It's possible that needs to be adjusted sometime in the future. But for now, we'll have to take it as it is and see where these just light potency increases go. Also, shake it off, applying more quickly. Thank you. Thank you. I've died to that before, but as the not warrior, thank you. Dark Knight, Abyssal Drain. Really like seeing the Abyssal Drain buff. Abyssal Drain just doesn't feel good to use. And I don't honestly even think this makes it feel better to use, but at least give it some love, Now, Living Shadow. Interesting. There's a lot of text here. Effect duration has been reduced from 24 to 20 seconds. Okay. Simulacrum now always attack the first target. Thank God. Dude, there's nothing worse than being on Dark Knight or Machinist and just watching your summon just go off into the distance. It's the worst. So that's good. The Simulacrum no longer use Quietus. Okay, I guess they cut 4 seconds. They had to cut something, right? And Quietus is probably the best thing to go. Shadowbringer potency increased by 50. Wow. And all the other actions increased by 50 as well. So it looks like they're trying to make it fit the burst windows better, because the average burst window is at most 20 seconds. Some jobs have burst windows that extend a little past that, or buffs that extend past that. Looking at you, Summoner. So this looks like it'll improve their usability because it now goes after that first target. So I'm glad to see that. And it fits better into burst windows and actually bursts a little harder. Dark Knight was already incredibly bursty. Making their burst window better in a sense, or I guess more focused and condensed, kind of just feeds into that. So Dark Knight's still likely to be an absolute monster, a powerhouse going into our new raid tier. Gunbreaker, oh my god, what are they doing at Gunbreaker? There's so many things. Okay, Brutal Shell, potency increase. You know what, with all the other tanks getting some potency increases, I shouldn't be surprised. Just their second and third part of their base combo going up. It's reasonable, I suppose. You know what? I've heard Gunbreakers talk about this. I had a Gunbreaker ask me the other day, either in a weekly Q&A or in a stream. They said, please increase the range of continuation. And I was like, oh, yeah, sure, why not? I mean, it'd make moving the boss easier. So, yeah, that's, yeah, I've heard a lot of Gunbreakers talking about that. So that's definitely a must-have. Fated Circle, just, you know, a little bit of AoE damage on that cart. Bloodfest, 120 seconds. I wondered when this would fall in line, and I wonder when Monk eventually falls in line with Riddle and Win. Yeah, this whole 90-second thing when they're trying to do 1 and 2 minute burst windows, it's just weird. Now, I will say this. I think Gunbreaker actually benefited substantially from a 90-second Bloodfest because the job is so busy in their 2 minute windows. And it's specifically their Bloodfested 2 minute windows that are incredibly clunky, as I've heard Gunbreakers call it. I took some time and learned the job a bit, played it a little bit, and I got what they were saying, but I didn't really mind so much. Now it means every 2 minute window is like that. So that's going to be pretty intense. But at the same time, I think the 90-second Bloodfest thing it's still silly. I just don't think it should have ever been that way in the first place. But I know some Gunbreakers are already like getting the Bengay out for their wrists at this point, you know, putting the wrist, you know, getting their wrist guards on and putting them on their keyboards and everything. Like, all right, that's it. We got to work double time every time now. Hypervelocity, it's a continuation skill, so yeah, more Yalm increase. Blasting Zone, 20 more potency, okay, and Double Down had its reduction in potency after the first target has been changed. So 5% better AoE on Double Down, which is pretty good. Yeah, I mean, this just looks like it's trying to be in line with some of the other changes. It seems like they really want Gunbreaker to stay as that kind of upper echelon of DPS. I mean, we see it even with Dark Knight. They're kind of just like trying to keep them on that higher scale. So it almost seems intentional. Again, I still don't know how Warrior is going to look after the changes with crit and direct hit. It'll probably be closer, but this seems to be trying to give them slightly better AoE, better range on their movement, and even a little bit better single target damage, but not by a whole lot, just by a little bit. Dragoon. Okay, we didn't get Dragoon rework. That's not till 7.0. We know that now. So what's this change? Jump and high jump. So I guess it's the same thing for both of them. The action will no longer be replaced by Mirage Dive while under the effect of Dive Ready. Following this change, Mirage Dive must be set to the hotbar separately. The recast timer of jump and high jump no longer affect the execution of Mirage Dive. This is where me not being a Dragoon main hurts my understanding of this. So every time I've been on Dragoon, I've never once felt like Mirage Dive replacing jump or high jump has been a problem. Maybe it's just because I was always just I'd done it just enough to understand how to do it, but not enough to apply it to like live game situations. I guess that I mean that helps weaving a bit, but is that worth it? I mean, it's an extra skill on the hotbar. I mean, I guess I'll always take anything that adds a skill back to the hotbar, especially on Dragoon. They've got, you know, the rotation's pretty simple, but the hotbars are pretty crammed already. I guess it's got to be weaving related then. It's the only thing that makes sense, because that's the only reason why they would change it. So, I don't know. I was never bothered by it the few times I've played Dragoon, but like I said, I don't apply it enough to a live scenario. So it's got to be. I'd have to assume it's a good change. Samurai, potencies. Tenka Goken, more potency. Kyoten, Guren. Guren's AoE now a little better. Well, a lot of bit better. 25% better on all the targets after the first. Goodness. And Goken. So these are all AoE, if I'm remembering correctly. It's been a while since I've actually played Samurai. I know Guren is. I know Goken is. So I guess it's just making their AoE better. Cool. I mean, that's whatever. Samurai's in a pretty good spot now, so yeah, that's that. And also they're going to be the beneficiary of the crit change with raid buffs. So yeah, we'll see how that pans out. Reaper, potencies. Honestly, I think Reaper can maybe do with a little more than this, but I gotta say 40 potency on Infernal Slice is pretty massive given. So it's always weird judging these skills. These are the kind of skills that actually do kind of require vacuum math in order to figure out. It's like the one case where it's kind of okay. Because Slice, Waxing Slice, and Infernal Slice, every time you're not doing your burst window, you're using these skills. You know, it's just they are the most used skills you are going to have. So when you increase potencies of skills that you use non-stop whenever you're not bursting in any way, then you get actually a sizable DPS increase. So this actually will be quite noticeable, even if it's on more mundane skills. It's not going to make your burst feel cooler. You might not even really notice your DPS increase if you're not tracking it, but it should have a sizable increase on your overall DPS. So if you are a Reaper main, you should be very glad that these things, even if they're not sexy changes, they're good. So bear that in mind. Machinist. Oh my goodness, what are they doing to this? Wait, hold on. Okay, so nothing to Heat Blast again. I check every time. I have to check. So, okay, Rook auto turret. So I notice it's the Queen and the Rook. So it seems to just be changes probably similar to the Living Shadow changes. No longer increases. So it's fixed 9. Okay, I guess we shouldn't even care about the Rook. I have to assume that the Rook changes are reflected in the Automaton change. Hold on. Rook overload. Base potency has gone down, but now goes up to the same. But yeah, we don't care about that. Let's just look at the Queen changes. That's all that matters. So the Queen now always attack the first target. The player attacks after it's summoned. Okay, like I said earlier with the Living Shadow, I mentioned it was a similar problem, so that makes sense. Duration no longer increases to a maximum of 20 seconds. It's now fixed at 12. So I actually really like this fixed at 12 because that is so much wiggle room on when you can deploy it during a 20-second burst window. There are buffs, of course, like I said, that are not 20 seconds long, but the average AoE buff window does last about 20 seconds. So that gives you a way better flexibility on when to actually deploy it, and it focuses the DPS into a much tighter range. So I'm a big fan of that. Potency of the Queen now increases as the battery exceeds the required cost. So this is the big thing. Your opener, your Queen is weaker by default. I mean, that's always been the case because its time was cut in half before. Now it's a matter of its potency instead is the thing that's cut in half, but the burst window in your opener makes more sense because you don't get to your Queen until 5 GCDs in minimum in your opener. You need your 1, 2, 3, and you need Chainsaw and Air Anchor. So with only the 12-second timer, that makes your burst in your opener even a little better. I wonder if it's 12 seconds including the time it takes to actually deploy, which means it's more like 9 seconds, which still would mean it's far more focused. I would still like to see them get rid of that the opening animation for this and Living Shadow, but there's no mention of that anyway. So Roller Dash, potency now increases as battery gauge exceeds required cost from a minimum of 240 up to 480. Okay, so the problem is I don't remember the old potencies. I think the job guide might have the old ones listed so that we know what the changes are. So I'll check that out afterwards. And Arm Punch is, yeah, same deal. So Arm Punch is stronger when you have more gauge. Minimum of 120 up to a maximum of 240. Yeah, so in your opener, these would be 240, and then in your reopeners, they would be double that. Okay. I don't know if that's the same as the old max potencies or the old regular Arm Punch potencies, or if that's an actual increase. But at the very least, it's focused into a tight window. So more machinists will probably better use raid buffs, even at like lower skill levels. Overall, fan of the change, but I don't. Just off the top of my head, I just haven't kept up with the potencies well enough to know if that's even any different for reopeners in terms of the actual effect. White Mage Liturgy increased from 15 to 20. I think that's good. 15 is okay, but White Mages have been constantly telling me if Liturgy was just a little longer, it'd be a lot better. Because sometimes it has issues with catching multiple hits of skills and actually deploying properly. But if it lasted a little longer, it would usually trigger that last hit on its own. Or it gives you a little bit more time to manually use it and time it, whether or not you have X amount of stacks left or whatever. So it just increases usability. There's no problem with that, with Liturgy. Scholar. So this looks to just be in line with the healing over time changes from the preliminaries, where they said healing over time no longer generates enmity. They're throwing Embrace and Seraphic Veil and Fey Union, which are all effectively heal over time skills, into that fray. So I agree with that change. If you're going to do it for what is classically defined, you might as well do it for what the community defines as a heal over time as well. Astro, what do you got for me? Redraw. The card drawn will never have the same Astro sign as the card presently held. Okay, so that makes getting your signs a lot better. It's not completely foolproof, because if you have a sign in your hand and you only need one of the signs to finish all three, you now have a 50-50 chance. But that's way better than the chances were before. Before, you essentially had like it was a 1 in 5 chance that you would still even draw the same sign, not to mention the 2. So it increases the odds. I still wish they would just design it so that it specifically only draws signs that you don't have. That would be, I think, the ultimate change to it. But it's one less variation. It's better odds than you had before. Still an improvement. Minor Arcana now changes to Drawn Arcanum. So I'm assuming it's going to say Crown Play is gone, because that's the only reason that makes sense. That should have happened so long ago. There's no reason for it to be 2 buttons for Minor Arcana and Crown Play. There was never a good reason for it. So good change, could be a little better, and should have happened a long time ago. That's the ruling for that. Sage, Cardia, no enmity on Cardia triggers anymore. Makes sense. I just explained it with Scholar. And Holos, the additional effect erects a magic barrier which nullifies damage equaling to the amount of HP restored, has been added. This I'm a big fan of. DSR, and I'm not saying they balance these things solely based on that, but it did expose a big weakness in certain healing compositions. One of the big ones it exposed was White Mage and Sage. That combination was just not undoable, but easily had to work so much harder to actually achieve the same results as like Scholar, Astro, or even Scholar, White Mage, or Astro, Sage. All those other combinations worked well, because Sage's shielding is not as strong as Scholar's is, and Astro also provides shielding as a regen healer. So this I'm a huge fan of. This allows them to hyper shield, and Holos is already an insanely strong skill. Lots of healing on it, which means a big shield on it as well. Sizable shield that's like 300 potency or something. When I assume also stacks with your normal shields, with your Panheimas, with your Eucrasian diagnosis or prognosis. So that's very good. That very much makes them feel more in line with what Scholar brings, and they still have amazing mitigation on Sage. So now they're going to be able to better pair those tools together. Big fan, especially, oh man, you can you, Holos isn't a, no, I don't, because Zoe I think only works on GCDs. Okay, that's fine. All the same, it's going to be very good. I promise you, it will be very, very good when combined with some of other Sage's skills that, increase healing received and plus all their damage met. Big fan. New trait, Reaper. Oh, that just increases their potencies. Okay, that's just a trait for their increased potencies. Which, these traits are always so weird because they don't word the combo potencies. So it just looks silly. You know what I mean? Like, look at it. It's like, oh, wait, Infernal Slice 180. What the heck? Crown Play is gone, and descriptions of certain actions and status effects have been adjusted. After that, it gets into the normal stuff. Now, there should be PvP changes as well before I go into anything else. Okay, yeah, let's look over the PvP changes as well real quick before we go into their explanations of things. Bloodwetting, portion of damage absorbed has been increased. I actually like that. Having seen a lot more warriors in Season 2, and having seen them kind of go back and forth in Season 1, Bloodwetting's healing is really, really good, but it doesn't feel like it has quite enough impact because of the sheer amount of damage, especially in the higher ranks, that goes out. So Warrior just gets disintegrated. So I think that's okay, because that's not going to stop a chain CC from killing a Warrior, but it gives the Warrior the ability to play back a little bit more. So fan of that. Gunbreaker, Drawn Junction, recast time reduced. Okay, it's fine, I guess. It just makes it so they can swap more frequently if they want to. Meteo Drive. Oh, the Monk nerf. Oh, you hate to see it. Monk has been dominating PvP, and it's specifically because Meteo Drive is so quick. It's deserved. It really is deserved, but I hate to see it. hate to see it. Dragoon, Chaotic Spring, healing from Chaotic Spring. I think that's fine. I don't think that really changes Dragoon's power. Dragoon's like a ranged DPS anyway. If you get to Chaotic Spring in PvP, you kind of deserve to pull that off. And Horde Roar. This will just give them better team fight survivability when they jump in and Horde Roar a team. They could just do that more frequently. So that should help Dragoon. I don't think Dragoon needs any help. Some people seem to think it does. I personally think while it's not as flashy maybe sometimes to get those kills if it's not with your limit break, Dragoon is like a sleeper agent because it just eliminates people without them even noticing. You get hit by a Wormwind Thrust and a Jir Skogul and you're just like, what the heck just happened to me? What just even happened to me? I didn't even... All right, I'm dead, I guess. That's fine. So I didn't think it needed any of this help. But I get why they would do it. I just... Oh, G10. Oh. Because, I wasn't already afraid of Xantexicans. Let's just make them more frequent. I mean, that's the thing. Samurai has so much power buried in Xantexican with G10. And G10's damage reduction plays a pretty big role in their survivability also that... Yeah, I get it. But still, I'm scared. Scared now. Ninja's Seitan Tenchu. The effect of unsealed Seitan Tenchu is now reduced by 1 second each time it is applied to a target with a minimum duration of 4 seconds. Oh, that actually... So I kind of like that. Ninja, again, I don't think really needed much of anything, but this just gives them a better means of kind of... snowballing if they can use it under the correct circumstances. So that's one thing Ninja is kind of known for, and it just seems to be supporting that. So I'm okay with that. And Ninja's still quite infuriating to play against. Really tanky Huton Shield, Mesui heal, plus their regular healing, plus the stealth. Like, they're quite slippery and tanky, way more than I think they should be. But at the very least, this is something that is in line with the job design in PvP. Machinist Chainsaw, additional... Why would you... All right, hold on. Wait a minute. Guys, additional damage dealt while under the effect of analysis has been reduced. So it doesn't one-shot anymore, but it still only does it a few % of the time. Can we just axe the whole thing? Can we put a chainsaw to chainsaw, bring it back to 100% and chainsaw itself? Get rid of this whole chance to insta-kill thing. It clearly is frustrating to play against, which is why you changed this. And it's not satisfying as the machinist with how infrequently it happens. Either leave it as it is, because it just doesn't happen very often, and it's a huge investment to use a reassemble, or an analysis on it, and not get a kill. It just feels like such a huge gamble that sometimes pays off, sometimes. But just axe the whole thing. Just get rid of it, come up with something else for Chainsaw. Summoner, Slipstream, oh wow, I really like that. Increased movement speed when standing in it. Okay, I like that. Just big fan of that utility. Guys, come on. Misery buffed up to 12,000. Barrier strength of Aquaveil buffed. Miracle. Okay, see, this makes sense. I still don't think it's all that should happen, but yeah, no, this makes sense. That's a good thing. I saw this and I was like, are you freaking kidding me? You're making it stronger. They are increasing its potencies though across the board. They are now able to kill a decent bit easier with Seraph Strike and Misery. Cure 3 is stronger, and Aquaveil is stronger. Those are going to be very good. I think you're willing to trade this for all the other buffs any day of the week, especially because in a lot of fights, you're within 15 yalms anyway. Like, it's only maybe at the very start of the game where you try to throw the long-range Miracle of Nature, but most of the time you're in that 15 yalm range anyway. So, yeah, that's going to be a thing. Scholar... Colloquium, increased base potency changes. Wait, increased 2 potency has been changed. Why don't you say you reduced it by 2%? That's fine. Yeah, small nerfs to this. Unless I'm misunderstanding, from 10% to 8%. Small nerf. Doesn't really matter. New PvP actions. Are we trying to make Astro's hotbars as... Sorry, I saw new skills for Astro, and I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? So you can now just place... the bowl. So you have 2 more cards now as Astro. You have the bowl and you have the arrow. So, oh man. Okay, reduces damage taken by this. Okay, these have applicable places. The bowl is something you can play around to by self or target and nearby party members. So you can choose to use it on yourself or somebody, and the people near yourself or them. If I'm understanding it, it's not like only you or everyone else. It's just, it's the AoE is centered around whoever's targeted. That's how I'm understanding. Okay. Yeah, that's really good for counterplay. And the arrow reduces weapon skill cast time, recast time as well as spell. Yeah, it's the original effect that had a, oh my god, movement speed. Astro didn't need this. Astro is already so strong. However, this might actually work to reduce why they're strong in PvP at the moment. If they're not always pulling spires, which is the big thing that makes them strong, or balances to help win fights overall, while these things are not bad by any measure, they may take away the advantages those gave simply by reducing the frequency with which they actually happened. Or they could be even stronger now. It's gonna have to be put into practice, in all honesty. Oh, so you should have led with that. I feel like you should, patch notes, you need to lead with that because that's pretty important to the other. Okay, see, now we're working. That's a huge hit, actually, to Astra then, because the Spire in particular was stupid strong. The arrow is going to be very, very good, especially for the number of times you're going to use a skill across a match. And the bull, great for counterplay. But, okay, so can I just speak for a second? The Ewer was kind of great. I know it's not the Spire, and I know it's not the balance, but when you're running out of MP and the Ewer's just like doubling your tick rate on, it doesn't, that's not how it works, but it effectively feels like it's doubling your tick rate. It felt really good to get those extra heals off. But I get why they're getting rid of both of them. That's fine. Effects of Heavy and Bind will now be applied more quickly. That should be a big buff to Dark Knight, because Dark Knight pulls you in and tries to bind you, and I'm not going to lie, I don't think I've ever actually been caught in a Dark Knight bind that's inside Assaulted Earth. I don't think it's ever happened. Ever. So, that's a big one right there. But also things like Bioblaster, things like Air Anchor. I mean, there's so many binds. Even Astro, has binds and heavies that just take forever to apply. So that's a big one. Grace period for executing combo actions has been increased. I think that's also good. I think it should honestly just be 30 seconds like PvE is, but I don't know. I guess they don't want to. And I think the rest of this is probably all the same. So we can move on to their reasoning for the changes. Yeah, this is all the same. I'm sure there are other changes in the patch notes, but we're going to just stick to the PvE and PvP job changes for the time being. Okay, so let's go to the job guide and scroll to the bottom, and there we go. We have the 6.2 adjustments. So for jobs in the tank role, action potencies have been adjusted to improve the balance. Okay, a number of other minor adjustments have also been made. These include, but are not limited to, changes to enmity generation, effect duration, range of certain actions, as well as functionality of actions that replace others upon execution. Okay, tank. Help ensure tank swaps were more consistent. That's provoke. So I guessed that one correctly. Paladin, potency of several Paladin actions have been increased to keep it in line with other tank jobs. That's reasonable. At this job has difficulty outputting high levels of burst damage. We chose to raise its damage floor. I mean, I guess with Paladin, almost anything you do only increases its damage floor, just because, again, its burst is, as they've said, not very high. It's a weird way to describe increasing specifically a combo they get once a minute, as opposed to, something that would increase their damage floor would be kind of like with Reaper, increasing their base combo skills. Or even Atonement would probably have been just as fine, but it seems they want to specifically make their most powerful skill feel more powerful. And it does help them with their burst damage as well, in a way. So it's a description I find kind of strange for how they define the Paladin change. Potency for warrior actions has been increased. In contrast to Paladin, warrior excels at dealing burst damage, so they chose to focus on increasing the basic combo. Yeah, I mean, that's in line with what we said earlier. Focus on any single action. Gee, I wonder which one you would have been referring to. Dark Knight, the simulacrum was subject to selecting undesirable targets. Yeah, it was. Why we've adjusted its behavior to ensure players can designate a specific target. Yeah, okay, that's well within reason. Duration has been reduced to slightly better suit damage where burst damage is necessary. Yeah, so we got that right too. The action Quietus was removed, and the potency of everything else was increased, and then Abyssal Drain was also increased. I still think Abyssal Drain just doesn't feel that good to use. It can, but just not frequently enough. So it's fine though. 90 more potency is quite good. Gunbreaker, this one I think we're going to be spot on for. The recast of Bloodfest lines up all their abilities for their burst, yeah. So they buffed other actions. Okay, so the reason they buffed the other actions was not to keep it ahead. It's because they knew less Bloodfest meant less carts, meant technically lower DPS, even if it always lines up better. Yeah, I'd like to see the math on that, but I'm sure that comes out to being the truth because one card is quite valuable across your entire rotation. So every time you would lose the amount of Bloodfests you will lose in an encounter, especially in longer encounters, is quite significant. And the range of continuation, yeah, I mean, of course, so they can position themselves while using it. That was obvious. Dragoon no longer overrides jump or high jump on the hotbar. That's just based on player feedback. Yeah, so like I said, clearly I don't have enough experience in a live Dragoon setting to see why that change is beneficial, but it's player feedback. So, like I said, it's got to be a good thing. Samurai's area of effect was insufficient. Okay, we got that right. So they buffed the area of effect attacks. Cool. Reaper, they increased their DPS to be more in line with other melee DPS. Reapers wanted this, and I think increasing their basic actions was a good idea. If they focus on their basic combo actions, very easy way to increase the damage floor and the overall DPS the job brings. So, gets my approval. When engaging multiple enemies, the Automaton Queen was subject to selecting undesirables. Yeah, so we expected that. Automaton Queen has also been given a fixed duration. It's literally the same description as Dark Knight stuff. The potency to its actions have been adjusted to increase. I gotta scroll up and see if they have the changes between old Machinist and new Machinist listed. White Mage, Liturgy, improve upon the changes made in 6.1, which allowed players to choose when its additional healing effect is triggered. So it's just more usability, like we said. Enmity generation from those actions makes them manage their enmity better. Yeah, same reasons I gave before. Astro, based on player feedback. You're damn right. Minor Arcana now changes into the Drawn Arcanum rather than the Crown play action. Yeah, expected. And redraw has also been adjusted, making it easier to acquire Astro Signs. Definite improvement. And Sage, a barrier being added to. That's honestly, I think the Sage change might be my favorite one across all of the jobs. Improve its overall utility for mitigating damage. The removal of enmity generation from Cardi's effect will also help the management of enmity. I mean, yeah, the management of it. If you DPS while you're running through a dungeon, you don't also generate healing enmity. Yeah, okay, sure. Yeah, big fan of the Hollows change, though. And I guess they should also have this for PvP, but let me take a look at the Machinist thing. I'm almost positive they normally list the change. I don't care about the Rook. I don't care about the Rook. Roller Dash up to a maximum of 480, and then Crown Collider delivers an attack up to 780. Okay. There's... Yeah, because these are all the updated skills. Wait, what is this? Why is this one updated? Oh, this one's updated, yeah. Does not affect damage over time effects. Yeah, okay, so this is only updated, I guess, because of this. Increases damage. Increases damage dealt when under an effect that raises... Wait a minute. Oh, yeah. So they're just adding... They added language to this to reflect the patch note changes. Yeah, that's fine. But... Yeah, I guess that doesn't have the old abilities listed from what it was before. I could find it. It's easy enough to just, backtrace the website and find what it said before. But yeah, I've completely forgotten what the old potencies were. Anyway, let me go to the PvP job guide. I'd assume they also have PvP actions. Here we go. 6.2 adjustments. Warrior, reduce the effectiveness of certain actions in light of Warrior's high performance shortly after 6.1. Yeah, that's because it was very easy to play. The win rate has dropped too low, so they made some adjustments. Really, Warrior has difficulty compensating for the HP consumed. Yeah, that's a good reason specifically a good reason to make those changes. Honestly, I'm not even a fan of it consuming HP in the first place. But if they want to keep that about it, then yeah, Bloodwetting and maybe even some other skills might need to be changed as well. Gunbreaker, reducing its recast to match the Junction cast. Yeah, that makes sense. See, I actually didn't know that its Junction cast was the same cooldown, or was a different cooldown than Drawn Junction. So reading that actually makes a lot more sense to me, because Burst Strike is very, very important. Improve offense, defensive healing. Yeah, because, it's going to be in line with whenever they want to make a change to their actual draw. Meteo Drive, yeah. Easily KO opponents. Did consider lowering the potency, just chose to adjust the rate at which they get it. Yeah, I understand, but I'm still sad. Made adjustments to offset the increased damage taken after the execution of Zir Skogul. Okay, if you say so. If that's the reason, I mean, I can't disagree that that's a decent reason for the Horrid Roar and Chaotic Spring changes, but okay, if you say so. One of Ninja's job-defining actions, its ability to sway a match is too high. The adjustment made this patch made this patch serves to maintain the job's distinctive playstyle, making it more difficult to score consecutive KOs. That makes sense. Like I said, it falls in line with the idea of the job snowballing when it gets an advantage, and it seems that is their reason for doing it. So I still think Ninja has other things that I'd like to see adjusted about it, but at least I was on the reason as to why they changed Seifen Tenchu like that. Samurai, increased mitigation. Well, this indirectly. No, sir. It very directly. It is not indirect at all that it allows them to put greater pressure on with Zantetsuken. There's nothing indirect about this change. They still feel it's within an acceptable limit. Okay, now that very directly impacts it. Machinist, one of the most highly used jobs. Yeah, it is, which I don't know why seems weird to me. And the combination of analysis with Chainsaw, single hit has become a source of frustration. So the only reason they're changing it is because too many people are playing Machinist. And so this gameplay element that they have created is too frustrating to play against. But just don't make it a frustrating element to play against. Changing it to 5% now just makes it maybe potentially disappointing, if anything. Oh, I got them down to 5%, but then they lived anyway. Just get rid of it. Just get rid of the whole analysis chainsaw thing. Summoner, while we were satisfied with the offensive ability, felt their ability to support the party was slightly lacking. Yeah, okay, if you say so. I like the slipstream change, so I'll take it. White Mage, noting the drop in win rates for White Mage. Reasonable. That's less about White Mage and more about Astro, man. The other healers have really picked up the pieces and made a name. Sage can pretty much, act as an assassin. Astro is like an unmitigatable like master of controlling everything. And Scholar does fairly decently, at the very least. They can put a lot of pressure on, especially with Biolysis in solo queue matches. People group up all the time. So spreading Biolysis on everybody just ends up being like a massive advantage. Scholar ends up occurring. White Mage, though, I'm surprised to see its win rates go down. I think the win rate going down could be because a lot of people played White Mage, told people White Mage is very popular, and then people flocked to it and tanked its win rate by not playing it properly. That might be the reason. We'll see. Miracle of Nature, though, again, I'm okay with that change. The other changes are quite good. So I think that's fine. Scholar, noting its very high win rate, almost as if I was just talking about how it's able to make those impacts there. The ability to spread the effects through Colloquium and Biolysis through the use of deployment tactics is one of Scholar's defining traits. Moreover, a skilled Scholar can continuously apply these effects with careful attention to timing. Yeah. Colloquium, the shield, the damage dealt increase, and of course Biolysis being spread is just people group up too much in solo queue. So it's Scholar's stronger because of that. Astro, we have changed the card actions used by Astrologian. The Spire's dependency on luck stood out with us. Completely true. Why we replaced its effect, the Ewer, while effective, was only useful in certain situations. Completely fair. But I think that's kind of the point of the PvP cards. It's about them only being useful in certain situations, but you needing to play to that situation. I think the Ewer's situations, like I said, I love the Ewer. I thought its effect was amazing, but it's only amazing if you are able to make use of it. And that is not always an option that is afforded to you in PvP. So the bowl has much better play for team fights. It's far more impactful. And the arrow is going to be insanely good. And the balance is already good. We all know that. Well, what do you know? The balance is still the best card that never gets changed. It's almost like it's been that way since 3.0. It's just now in PvP also. Never going to change that one. But that seems to be their reasoning for all these changes. But yeah, those are all the job changes, both PvP and PvE for patch 6.2. Some things are a little bit questionable on the PvP side and PvE. I didn't fully understand, but at least they all made sense to me. But yeah, I think overall we're looking for a pretty interesting result. The crit direct hit changes, still the #1 thing that we need to see in action. And I kind of wish they'd gone into that even a little bit more in these notes. I kind of wish they just more detail, I suppose. But all the mathematicians and people in the discords and whatnot, they'll have it all within a week or so. So anyway, thank you for watching this video. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share, and stay tuned. We'll be doing all the patch 6.2 videos soon enough. But I'm going to get back to my live stream, who I've been ignoring pretty much this whole time. So thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.